The Blood Diner. First they greet you, then they eat you. No one under 17 admitted.
And that was the marketing of back then. Welcome back to the show here. And we're talking about another older horror flick. And a lot of times you get to talking a lot about these, and it's... You always, you think of a lot of these. You got the slasher genre where you got all the infamous, slasher serial killers. You got, the Texas Chainsaw Massacre and Michael Myers and Freddy Krueger and Jason and all that. And a lot of, and then some people do remember Phantasm and which are a lot of great movies. And you got, the Dawn of the Dead or the Romero zombie franchise dating all the way back to the 60s with his black and white hit, which oddly didn't become a hit until like a lot of drive-in theaters started playing it at midnight and whatnot. But you got a lot of these infamous ones that always come to mind with people. But there's a whole slew of these obscure, somewhat oddity kind of films, if you would. And Blood Diner is one of them. This was a film that I remember going to locally in town, at least where I grew up, the grocery store and places. This is the height of the VHS era, which is just awesome because everybody rented videotapes. Everybody did. I mean, you could check into motels and they would rent you. They would be at the front desk. There'd be a small section of shelving or whatnot, and there was a bunch of tapes you could rent. And so it was just great. I remember checking into these hotels and stuff when I was a kid with my grandparents or whatnot, and there'd be a VCR in the hotel room, and you could go and rent tapes. So. Gas stations. I remember going into a gas station actually purchasing videotapes. It was odd. It was just a cool time. So Blood Diner is one of those that I saw the cover, the box, and it was for rent in this local supermarket. And for whatever reason, this local supermarket had just an amazing collection of really oddball horror flicks, along with really good ones too. But they had a whole bunch that were just bizarre kind of stuff, like there's something in the closet or the jar or whatever it could be. Now Blood Diner was amongst one of them. And what caught my eye was the old dusty videotape cover, and which was weird because back when I remember seeing a lot of this stuff, a lot of these movies were only a few years old. But this setup was in the front, by the front door of the window, like right when you walk into the grocery store. So I'm sure the sun was beating down on a lot of these boxes throughout the day in and day out. So some of them were pretty faded, especially the ones that were even older, like from the 60s and 70s. The videos, and they were probably lingering around for a good several years or something. But Blood Diner was one of them. I remember, and I got the new Vestron Video Collector Series re-release of this on Blu-ray, which is crazy now to see a lot of this stuff remastered and all that. And I bought this because of just the fact that I remember seeing this movie, on there. I never did rent it. I didn't. I only saw it later when I remembered it, and I saw this collector's edition coming out. And I said, you know what? I remember seeing that movie. I better buy it just to watch it or something like that. But it's got this, really cool, ominous kind of, depiction drawing. You got the full moon out, the dark sky, ghostly clouds in the air, and you got the diner kind of resets back into like kind of the woods in a sense, with all the creepy, almost cartoonish, kind of looks like something out of a Scooby-Doo series from the 60s, and all the branches and stuff kind of overshadowing the diner, where it just says straight eat. And then out front you got this really cool, neon sign that just says Blood Diner with an arm that's holding a butcher's knife that's got the little, blood graphic on it. And it's all done in that really awesome neon light bulb kind of thing going on. So there's your cover. So upon watching this movie, you can immediately tell it's a comedy. It's just such a screwball, goofy movie that it's definitely comical. But back to the cover, this was what intrigued so many people, like myself, back in these days where you saw these videos for rent on videotape. I mean, the more cartoony, the more outlandish. I mean, they had to get you to want to rent the thing or go see it. So they had to come up with something. It had to be really innovative. It's nowhere near like what they do now. Like now, it just seems like they just take stock photos or scenes and just kind of collage them together, and there it is. Probably somebody came up with it in like a couple of minutes on their lunch break or something. But no. Not back when they used to do covers where they spent time or they hired artists to draw things, a watercolor or pencil or whatever. They actually would draw these things out or think about them. And just taking the cover of Blood Diner in general, just like the whole description of it, and you can see it here. I think I'll get an image up on this radio right here to check it out. But you can really see the detailed drawing. I mean, you can see why I would want to be interested in renting it. Well, at least there's somebody that likes these kind of movies. But back then, that's what they did. They really put time and effort into a lot of this, especially when you go to these video stores and you go in there and you see, like for me, it was like this place called Dr. Video, and it was this really a dungeon type video store. Awesome stuff in there, just jewels I've picked up out of there on videotape. I remember buying a copy of Play Misty for Me with Clint Eastwood's directorial debut. Really creepy movie. I bought that on videotape from him. An old copy of it too. I bought that from that place. And this is actually back where I would rent the Three Stooges. They had like Three Stooges, volume 1 through like 50 or something like that. And you could just go in there and rent. Each videotape contained like 3 episodes. So I was just constantly going in there, renting them. And eventually I actually bought these things from there, bought the tapes because they were just selling them outright. Which was, I think it was partly because he probably was, looking to close up or something like that. But I was actually purchasing quite a few videos from him. So, but back to the story, it's easy to get distracted with these videotapes and stuff, because for me it's just such a really a center point from my childhood. I really just miss these days so much. But going through, like, especially like the horror section and these videos, the cover arts and stuff, being so young too, it's like it intrigues you, it intimidates you, it challenges you. It's like, hey, like, you didn't, check this out, you hadn't seen this. And I remember one of them distinctively was Faces of Death. Oh my God, that was like, you'd almost get scared just to pick up the box and turn around. Banned in 46 countries, and that was it. I mean, that's kind of how they would get you, like Blood Diner. First they greet you, then they eat you. No one under 17 admitted, stuff like that. I mean, it's so. But, as you watch the film, it's got a really interesting, everything in it is just really totally campy, great 80s quality of just goofball movie, where it's just basically, it's almost taken from, the storyline is very similar to The Blood Feast, Herschel Gordon Lewis from, I believe, the 60s. Where it's got that Egyptian thing, Ishtar or something like that. I'm not even sure if any of that's how like historically true or accurate it is. But it's like they're basically they're killing people in the diner, chopping them up and putting them into this like stew or something, and they're gonna serve it to everybody, and they're all doing this in the name of this Egyptian goddess or something. And then they got I think they're like their father or something was a nutball, and they got his brain in like a jar, and the brain's talking to him, and the brain's got eyes and everything. And like, I guess like within like a few minutes of the movie, within you can tell like it's just like okay, yeah, you can see where this is going. This is the kind of movie where it's just like this is a laughing kind of comedy kind of movie. At the same time, it's got some really good effects and everything, and especially when they hit the guy with the shovel and it pops his eyeballs out of his head, and they just kind of just like somebody threw him on the ground, and they kind of look like something got out of the little quarter machines or something. But really interesting, kind of, it's got that diner thing going on, and, there's people coming in the diner, and then they're, like, serving people, and it's like, of course, they're, like, serving, like, cannibalistic kind of stuff, in the back, serving people up, other people. So, that's kind of, but I've always been drawn to those kind of, that kind of creepy diner, what's going on in this diner kind of thing. Because it's as you go around, I mean, there's diners across, the lines of states and stuff. A friend of mine's a truck driver. I mean, all the diners he stopped at. And even for me growing up, I mean, it's like, gosh, I mean, how many diners and stuff that I've been taken to from my parents or just me and my buddies driving along, stop at a diner, let's get something to eat. Driving across state lines, sometimes it's like, wow, what's this place? It might be good. And every now and then you run across something really good, and you're hoping it's not Blood Diner. But the other one that comes to my mind about this kind of subject is actually an episode from Tales from the Crypt, and it's got Christopher Reeve, and it's called What's Cooking. That's another good diner type serving up people. That one's really gritty. More along the lines of like, yeah, that's kind of, but Blood Diner, good old time, really funny movie. It's full of it's full of good effects. They really did do a lot of good effects in it. The acting is absolutely terrible. Don't expect to be like floored with amazing acting, but this one is definitely one of those that they had to rely on cover art and an interesting trailer and all that. So if you actually watch the original 1987 movie trailer, you can tell they were trying to figure out how to create this movie to make people want to watch it. And actually, it's funny because the way they did the trailer, which is basically a guy trying to like host it and say, oh, this and this, and then they show you a quick snippet of the movie, which makes it look like a terrifying movie. Because I think the reason is because if they showed too much of the acting and stuff in the movie, I think you would realize like, oh, this is going to be pretty bad. Growing up, we had this idea one time we should make stickers like this sucks or this is bunk, don't rent this, and all that, like going around to the video store, like, because that was a Friday night. What we did was we scoured the video stores. We would go to Video Showplace, Dr. Video, Scott's Video up in the south of the town and everything. We'd go up there, and the Scott's Video is another place that had some really interesting movies. And scour all these tapes and look for obscure stuff, odd things, and just rent them and just say, hey, like, well, this might be good, this might not be good. So interesting stuff like that. But Blood Diner is definitely one of those weird ones. Again, I want to say to Vestron, I think let me make sure we got the right name here, Vestron Video Collector's Series. For a movie like an oddball movie, kind of like this, well, at least to me, it's an oddball movie. There probably is more people that are where this is like a movie that's really near and dear to their heart. But for me, it's cool. I mean, I bought it, I have it. I'm not going to get rid of it. It's just one of those interesting movies. But they did a good job with the artwork, because I want to say this for Vestron, this is a big thing. For a lot of the older people like me that grew up remembering a lot of these tapes and seeing a lot of these horror tapes, the cover art is important to us. It really is, because that original artwork was what we remember. That's our childhood. That's what we grew up with. So it's very important to preserve that. And Vestron did that for this release here, and they captured the cover exactly like I remember it, with the butcher knife in the hand and the neon lights and that weird creepy diner recessed back into the woods kind of a thing. So really good job. They did a good job on this one. And they've been doing quite a few of them that I recall, like just off the top of my head. I think they did, I want to say they did Chopping Mall as well, and Waxworks. But I could be wrong, but there's a lot of these companies that are doing a lot of these things. Shout Factory or Scream Factory, they've been doing a really good job. And taking over and really re-releasing a lot of this stuff and doing it in a way that you can tell they're fans themselves or something. Arrow Video is another one. So a lot of these newer ones are these new companies that are, I don't know how new they are, but going back and digging up the bones in the yard and presenting us things like this gem Blood Diner. So gotta love it. Absolutely fantastic. It's a goofy movie, but so if you ever feel like you just want to grab some popcorn, maybe a beer, and just kind of laugh and chuckle a little bit and kind of remember the old cheesy 80s good old time of horror flicks from back then, it's definitely worth checking out. So anyway, thanks for tuning in, and we'll catch you next time.